both of which Don Fagan was involved in, both involving an ace-king suited, both played very, very cagily, and Fagan managed to get the maximum out of one and do the minimum in the other, Jesse.
Fagan sitting there from Ireland, probably lucky to have the chips he's got, or maybe not lucky. Skillful would be the better alternative. And Joe Beavers has just limped in now from the button. Barney, are the blinds at a stage now where limping in becomes the only way of getting a cheap investment?
Call.
Well, that's right. He doesn't want to be re-raised for a big chunk with this kind of hand, but he'd like to take a flop with position.
Check.
Gowan letting them in.
She'd love to see
Three
a king.
players.
Well, what a perfect flop for Joe. No one else has got anything to give him any action with, of course.
Tell you what, when you play a 3-5 suited, you don't mind seeing this kind of flop.
The unfortunate thing for Joe is he hasn't got the kind of players who are likely to play back at him, but it is the kind of flop you might want to represent. Joe's got exactly the opposite of the kind of hand they think that he would have, and it's the kind of situation where a lot of players would play back.
Raise.
And that's exactly what Vent's doing.
What a call!
He thinks this is a blind kind of flop that Joe's just trying to take it away, and he's not going to like what happens now.
Pass.
Vent says, you don't have a blind hand, I have a blind hand, but he's bluffing.
This is a good move by a good player, but he happens to have picked a very, very bad time to do it, Jesse.
I'm all in.
Wow, and there Beaver struck the hammer down. Holy Toledo.
He doesn't want Vent to get in with any kind of flush draw. If Vent's got a 7, he doesn't want him to hit his second pair. He's quite happy to take this now. Bottom 2 pair, not very safe to catch further cards with, Jesse. He's only going to improve if he makes a house. And Vent, he's just putting on an act, trying to make it look like he's got something. Joe sprung a trap there, a bit unfortunate for Vent. He made an imaginative move. He happened to walk into Joe with a hand you could never have expected.
Playing for time here, 5th heat of the 888 Poker Nations Cup.
Jack of clubs exposed. Pass.
Card turned over, no advantage given. Everyone will find out what that card is.
Pass.
Major Interesting to see if Cloney folds here, Barney, because that'll leave Krauser with a button play. The last time he tried to pick on
Pass.
Bank Sonnert, Sonnert chased him away.
By past form, Sonnet might fancy raising here.
Raise to 400.
Just double the bet.
He's got every move in the book. I hope he's sure that, about the rules in this tournament, because in some places that would go as a raise.
2 players.
Don Fagan doesn't have much, but neither does Bank Sonnert. A 9
Check.
would suit Don very nicely, would make him a straight.
Bet 600.
Fagan from Ireland has gone up and down now, 4 or a 9. It's a pretty big bet, 600. And he's
Call.
just called.
Well, he doesn't want to get in too deep, but he's got position. Now, Bent is out of position. Will he follow through the bluff? And will Fagan feel he has to bet to take this away?
There's 2,000 in there.
I
Bet
think this
800.
one is going to get through, Jesse. It'd be far too expensive to Sonnet. Sonnet would have to raise to try and take this pot. He knows that Fagan might be stealing, but it's very, very hard for him to do anything about it. Great bluff by Fagan. We've seen some very, very cagey, very sophisticated play. It's no good calling withdrawals unless you're prepared to bet when you miss.
Back in the 80s, Don Fagan would have been at the table with Amarillo, Slim, Doyle, Brunson, and more. And here, Kaluki Don putting down the 23-year-old Swede at his own game.
At his own game, Jesse.
Really, you know, just getting an extra 5 points, anyone who can knock themselves into third place has done a huge amount for their team.
That's right. I mean, it's a nice position to be in, the position of a team like Denmark, just wanting to build, just wanting to pile on those points. But for Great Britain and Sweden, it's really a case of they have to get themselves into this game fast.
Pass.
Sonnert limping in, and he's got the hooks. Just 200. It'll only be 100 on Martin Vent.
Well, you know, when Sonnet only limps, that's when he's most likely to have a genuine hand. The alarm bells will be ringing around the table now.
Cloney Gowan says, thanks for the free flop. Well, there could be a couple of
Free
firework flops.
Well, that's good news for Sonnet, bad news for Vent.
Check.
Marina.
Bet 400.
Yeah, Vent not even hesitating here.
Call.
He feels his 9 is far more likely to be good than bad.
Pass.
And if it becomes a small raggy card, he might have to pay a little more.
9 or a 7 is what Denmark is
Two
looking
players.
for right now. They have not hit it.
Check.
And does Sonnert know his jacks are good?
I think he's going to play them as if he's sure they are. He's not going to back off this. And if Vent
Bet
decides that Sonnet's at it, this could be very expensive for the Danish player.
Barney, this is the danger of Sweden's style.
But of course, Vent a very experienced player, and with Sonnet having followed through with a second bet, he knows it's a serious possibility, because he knows that Sonnet must be putting him on something, must be giving him a 10. So he may have figured out that a 9 is not good enough.
These two have squared off before, and Vent showing his experience, Barney. Sonnert makes a few hundred on the pot, but Denmark does not let him have any more.
Well, came sweetly for him. He got the most by slow playing those jacks. He took a chance to get himself back into the game, and now with about 3,500, that's just steadied his nerves a bit, Jesse.
I would say that he's one of the few guys in the world that can master most of all games, and he's one of the few guys that I know that's really, really good at playing both no limit and limit, and also a very good cash game player.
You can see through scan that card.
Everyone still remaining. 6 players at this 888 Poker Nations Cup heat.
Joe B with some.
Joe. Start watching Joe. Can you put the cameras on Joe?
The cameras are on all of us, darling.
Oh, I
Yes.
Didn't realise they get found out quite so soon, actually.
Yeah, I know. I did, gummit.
I thought I'd go at least
200 around to Krauser,
Pass, pass.
who's,
Pass.
wow, he folded King Jack. He's not getting himself in any trouble,
Raise
is
to
he?
600. Pass.
A button raise for Sonnet. He's got a real hand here.
Yeah, we
Well,
can
that's one of the
eliminate Joe if
benefits of
that's it.
playing his way. No one ever puts him on a real hand.
Be able to do anything with that information.
No, it was very deep. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure it was next.
I don't
I mean,
know.
I can't imagine.
This is a
somebody
big
I mean,
decision.
I can see it
I
in
don't-
a regular
Well, it's
game.
no decision. There's no way that Joe Beavers is putting this hand down, and he
If we were
may
playing
well
at
put the
5,
pressure
yeah,
on
yeah,
Sonnet.
maybe.
This could develop into a very big pot.
It would be a full. A full.
Call.
Well, he's trying to take off a flop here, maybe looking for a flop without an ace on.
Joe trying to keep it low so far, and that's not a bad option. He's going to like that
Well, it's a
flop.
perfect flop for Joe, absolutely perfect. If Sonnet bets, I think Joe will come over the top.
Very strong.
Sonnet hasn't walked into the trap so far. Joe may have to bet his own hand, Jesse.
Use that.
Boy, this is one of those examples about how players are shying away from the 50-50.
I think Joe, a little bit afraid of Sonnet's check on the flop. He feels that Sonnet might have actually hit. By the time it dawns on Joe that he's in front, he goes behind.
Wow. What a hard card on the river for Great Britain. You have to love the way Joe has played this, not to lose a lot of chips. But now, is he going to lose some?
Well, he might have to make a little call on the river here because he was looking for a flop without an ace, but I think he felt afraid of Sonnet's check on the
1500.
flop. He felt if Sonnet had nothing, he probably would have bet the flop. At that point, Joe would have raised him, but now he's let it get away from him. I think Joe played his hand a little too passively for a little too long, and now I think he's going to give it up. Joe never really quite knew where he was in the pot. I think he was check raising on the flop, but when Sonnet checked it, that scared Joe a little bit. He didn't take the chance on the turn, and now he's really given this one up. I think he felt all the time that he was going to call a bet if an ace didn't come down.
What you got left, Ben? 2,000?
Wow, he's asked for a countdown.
He's got no intention of raising, Jesse, I
What are
promise
brown
you
chips
that.
down
No intention at all.
Sonnet has stuck in 1,300 of his 3,300.
Joe's just trying to understand Sonnet's bet, trying to understand whether it's an out and out bluff, trying to understand why he would want to bet having checked the turn.
What a great size bet it is, though, Barney. It's a little bit of an over bet, isn't it? It almost looks like a bluff.
That's exactly what Joe's trying to figure out, and he may have talked himself into making this call.
Wow. Sonnet would have gotten an automatic call if he had gone for 400, but he's felt some strength, Barney, and he's priced this sweetly.
Pass.
Pick up those chips, baby!
In the end, a good pass by Beavers, but really, if he'd taken the initiative on the turn, he could have taken that pot away. A little bit confused by Sonnet not having a stab on the flop, Jesse.
I tell you, Barney, you stick those cards in 500 different players' hands, and most of the time it goes all in before the flop. As it was, I mean, it just goes to show how many ways you can play poker.
Yep. I think Joe was trap checking on the flop, but then he lost his way a little bit in the pot, and he found a very, very good pass at the end.
The big story, Beaver's still the chip leader, but Bengt Sonnet has climbed back into this tournament, and he's not very far from where he started. Sweden's going to be a force here.
Do you have a pair? Well, don't ask me. If you're not going to tell me, don't ask me.
Very good. Bengt Sonnet said, "What did you have, Joe?" And Joe said, "I'll tell you for a quarter, and I'll tell you what I really had for a nickel."
That's what bump bump means
I
too.
bet on the turn.
Hold it around now to Bengt Sonnet and Don Faggett from Ireland on the button. I'm really enjoying this game.
Nice.
A raise to 700.
Oh, Fagan's found the ladies.
Don't get. Never mind.
Huh?
Nothing.
Really saw the class of Joe
Pass.
Beavers making that fold there. His tournament no limit hold'em game has come in leaps and bounds. It's 500 on Martin Vent.
Very, very difficult situation for Martin Vent to find himself in.
Well, this is a cold deck, Barney. This is a disaster for him.
Yes, it certainly is.
They're all going to go in.
It looks like they are all going to go in. And if they do, Fagan won't be passing. But he won't make a quick decision, Vent. He feels that Fagan's a solid player. It's a medium pair. But it's in this format of tournament, it's very hard to get away from this kind of hand.
15.
Especially to a button raise.
Well, he's
Re-raise.
committed himself, Jesse.
To 2,200.
You're right, the raise was from the button. That makes it all the more easy for Vent to make this play.
Well, a bit of a frown from Don Fagan. Surely he can't consider he's beat Barney.
Well, he's not putting it down, Jesse. It's more a case of disguising his hand. He'll be moving the rest of the chips in after trying to put a bit of doubt into Vent's head about how strong his own hand is.
These two teams are at the top of the leaderboard, Ireland and Denmark, and the onus of being the first out is a big burden for players to take.
He's hesitating. He's trying to make Vent feel he hasn't got a hand nearly as strong as he has. And then he's going to say, oh, what the hell, this is a all-in or pass situation. I'm going to gamble with you, and he's going to shove them in. And I think that Vent, he's committed for sure. The rest of the chips will follow quickly.
Fagan's quite an actor. The more he waits, the more Vent will be sure he's not beat.
Well, by now, Vent must feel that he's in a good spot. This has gone beyond an acting performance. We're seeing genuine hesitation from Fagan.
We have not seen queens folded before the flop in this tournament so far.
It's impossible for Fagan to put this hand down. Yes, maybe the act was just a little
Re-raise
bit
all
too
in.
long.
It's going to get the call.
Quick call, I'm sure, from Vent.
Well, Vent has 2,050 left. And Barney, as the team captain for Denmark, he knows that points are important. Not necessarily important to go for the win. Does he want to gamble here?
Well, if he folds this, it would be absolutely extraordinary, Jesse. There's already 8,000 in the pot. He's only got to put another 2,000 in to win a pot of 10,000. He's pretty well getting the price against the hand that he's up against, Jesse.
Like a mousetrap in the cookie jar.
Yeah, well said. I mean, tens beat queens every once in a while, don't they? Tens beat anything.
Well, he wasn't fooled by the act. He knows that Fagan's got a big hand, but he has to call. As you say, Jesse, this is just an absolute cold deck.
Denmark is all in, playing against
Queens, I
Ireland.
think he's got queens.
Vent called all in, and Joe Beavers called Don Fagan's hand. Fagan will have about 1,200 chips left for Ireland, but this is the biggest pot of the heat so far, Barney. And Denmark all in, needing to catch a 10.
Ireland shows a pair of queens, Denmark shows a pair of tens.
The leaders
Denmark
of
is
this
all in.
tournament could be going out first.
Yeah, don't mix the pockets.
There's two tens left in the deck, and Vent needs to catch one for his
Let's see the
team.
No, you had him covered.
Flop comes 7, king, 4, pair of queens.
No
and
flush
front.
initiative.
Denmark
Both players
leads
have a club.
10. Stay in the tournament. Turn cut. Is a deuce.
That's changed nothing, Barney. It's still the two tens
Ireland also
for
has the better flush draw, so
Denmark
only the
to
10 would
win.
help Denmark. Let's see the river. It's a jack. Okay, Denmark's first version out.
That's it.
Goes to that.
Denmark's very popular, very talented captain. Unfortunate to be the first one out here, but this is going to equal out the points position, Jesse, and everybody now within a chance of getting closer to that top position on the final table.
The Irish guy was on the button and had made a raise. I was in big blind and found a pair of tens, so I re-raised him. But I committed so much of my stack by re-raising him, so I couldn't let my pair of tens go.
5 left, one player out, 150, 300, and Denmark now, 1 point giving them 26. Barney, the mathematical possibilities are wide open now.
Well, Ireland are now big favourites to head the leaderboard at the end of this match, Jesse. They're already guaranteed at least 25 points. One more out and they'll be level with Denmark minimum. Joe has been raising with these small pairs already.
Last time he did this, Cloney Gowan made a remove from her button.
Well,
The ace-jack.
she's the one who came over the top of him before, and it looks like she's going to be the one who's going to do it again.
Do you think Martin Vent's tens are going through her mind? He was facing queens. Cloney's facing the underpair, but she doesn't believe.
Well, believe or not believe, tens is a strong hand.
Barney, can she afford to re-raise and leave any chips behind? Is it re-raise all in? Or is it, I mean, does she have many options here?
Call.
She's just called. Is that about giving her something else for the flop and getting away from it possibly if an ace comes?
Well, that's the kind of thinking, yes. And she's maybe caught a little in two minds. She didn't want to commit all her chips before the flop. It'll be interesting to see what happens if an ace-high flop does come, Jesse.
Oh, a bank Sonnert's got 2 live overs on the big blind. It'll cost him $550.
Call.
It'll take a flop anyway.
This could slow everybody down if nobody hits.
This is a big pot. It's 2,700. And Joe's hit it. The sixes hit him hard.
Check.
He's been allowed in here for Great Britain.
Yes, he has. Cloney caught in two minds of her tens has let Joe in to hit a huge, huge flop.
Check.
And she might well feel this is a good flop for a pair of tens. She's entitled to think that.
Check.
Indecision can cost you, and Joe Beaver's letting everybody catch up now.
But with Sonnet behind her, Cloney was being cautious. Sonnet now, a gut
Check.
shot. Joe surely must have a pop this time. There's too much danger out on that flop.
Everybody's watching Beavers.
Now, Cloney Gowan, of course, also has a middle pin 8 to make a straight.
1,350.
Very, very hard for her to get away from this.
Well, Barney, it's impossible. She has to figure Joe would have bet the jack. I mean, the only thing that's beating her is something like 3 nines or 3 sixes.
Well, she's been slowed down by the fact that Sonnet's in there as well. And that, a remarkable fold.
Really is.
It was just line.
A lot of danger on that flop, of course.
Pass.
Beavers gives a free card, but even that can't get any action. Although Joe will feel fortunate to have seen a flop at all. And that's a good little pot for Great Britain, taking them up to about 8,000 and change. Welcome back to the 888 Poker Nations Cup.
Pass.
Beavers feeling very good right now for Great Britain. And Cloney, she made the money in the World Series, has had plenty of final table finishes, and she's showing a bit why she's not giving her chips up
Call.
too easily. Now this relationship has really developed, and Fagan now has so many
Raise
chips,
ace high
Barney,
in there.
he feels obliged to raise with the 9 high. Sonnert's got him strangled.
Not a pretty looking hand though when you're facing a raise out of position, Jesse.
Pass.
Fagan showing he's got every aspect to his game. He's going to pile the pressure on. He knows how to use a chip lead.
He's wielding it like a bludgeon right now, Don Fagan from Ireland. He took a few years off the poker scene, was quite active in the late 80s, and when he came back last year, immediately made the final table of a WPT event. That's not an easy thing to do.
Pass. Pass.
Krauser for Germany, laying it down on the button. And this is again the small blind, big blind. Sonnert has had a very
1,000.
tough time with Don Fagan, but he's got some pretty big tickets here. Beck's stuck about a quarter of his chips in.
Fagan is considering trying to get Sonnet off of this. Sonnet has raised from this position so many times. Fagan knows there's a very strong possibility that Ben Sonnet hasn't got a hand. But it's very expensive to take a flop here, and it could be very expensive if he was wrong if he moved. He's probably going to throw it away. He'd love to use his chip stack to push Sonnet around.
This is the beauty of the Swede's game. He's always asking questions. Wow. Barney, he might re-raise. He's going to get caught. Sonnert's going to recommit.
How much have you got in
Fagan should be aware that Sonnet has got a quarter of his chips into this pot. Unlikely. He's just asking for the count because he realises it's unlikely Sonnet will want to leave a quarter of his chips behind. I think Fagan feels the raise is just a little bit too much for him to be able to get Sonnet off of this. I still think in the end he's going to back off from making this move.
Fagan very experienced.
All in.
He's raised all in.
Raise all in.
There's no way Sonnert's going to fold here, is he? Fagan's on a 7 high.
Well, he saw Fagan do this long think before and turn over queens, but he's had to make the call. Too many of his chips, and he didn't like it, but he had to call, and Fagan isn't going to like what he sees. His spades aren't fresh.
The beauty of Bengt Sonnert's game, he induced this move, and Fagan is not in terrible shape, but he is trailing severely.
All in. Let's see the flop.
Sweden all in wants to keep the 7s and 4s off the board.
Comes 8, 9, 9.
That's not bad for Bengt
Ace sevens in
Sonnert.
front.
An ace would pretty much end it.
It's another 9.
7 or 4.
Last card.
Oh.
It's
Oh!
9s
Okay.
and 4s, full house for Ireland, so
Sorry,
Sweden is the next nation out.
I'm hitting cards.
Bengt Sonnert from Sweden. He had the chips in where he wanted, but Ireland has just stormed to the lead, and that'll really hurt Sweden's chances. Overall, they're down to 18 points.
I'm really annoyed now. I'm frustrated because we needed a point, and of course I want to win. So we've gotten unlucky a couple of times now. I think Sweden has been unlucky in almost all in situations all the time. So it's got to be something's gonna. Hopefully we'll get lucky in the final instead. We'll see.
They've got most of the chips. Looking at that leaderboard, top